You bring up a good point because with Angel Studios or A24 or Neon, like who heard of Neon 5 years ago, right? They've recently had a couple of hits and so on, but now it's like, "Oh, you've got a Neon film."
Hmm.
And a neon film is now that's a brand. If you hear it's a neon film, it's probably got some sizzle to it that you wanna go see if you're into that style
Yeah.
of film. Same thing with A24. Same thing with Angel Studios. Angel Studios has a brand, like, you
Mhm.
know what you're getting when you get that when you go to watch an Angel Studios film, you know the kind of content you're gonna be getting. You know the faith-based sort of world that they are inhabiting and what they're exploring with that. And so they're branding themselves and creating this the brand of Neon, the brand of A24, and their email list is huge. Like I'm on all 3 of those, Angel and like all 3 of those email lists and seeing what they put out every week or every month or whatever it is, whenever they send their emails out.
Yeah. One thought that came up as you were talking there is the idea of, if we go back to being truly independent, what does it take? Well, look, if I'm trying to build an email list of 1 million people, let's use that as like the first big milestone. If I have 1 million people on an email list, which would be amazing. I mean, again, I've never had more than like 5,000 people on an email list. So that would be
Right.
a huge jump, 200x, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know what it would take to get there, but not the point. The point is, if the goal is to build an audience relationship, a relationship with an audience of 1 million people, does selling your tickets on Fandango help you do that? And the answer is no, because Fandango owns the relationship with the people, with the
Right.
buyers. They don't send you a CSV file of all the people that purchased a ticket to your movie.
Yep.
Okay, well, yes, you might sell more tickets, but does it help you get the other outcome of building relationship with a larger audience of people? No. So I'm not telling you there's a right or wrong answer, but if you know what the outcome is, there's definitely one that will help you get there more directly, right? So
One also
eh,
feels more of short-term thinking rather than establishing
exactly.
yourself and the brand and long-term thinking to sustain yourself for years and decades.
Yeah. And if you look at Angel Studios, they built their own ticketing platform. I
Yeah.
don't know at what cost or how many people it takes to maintain that every month, but like you can buy a ticket to whatever their Rule Breakers is their new one that's out in theaters. You can go to angel.com and buy tickets to the theaters through Angel. Well, guess who then owns the relationship with the person who
Yep.
bought the ticket? Angel does, right?
Then they're every film that they make now from now till the end of
Yeah.
them, they can market to that same person.
Yeah.
They also own the funding mechanism too, right? Like they've created their own equity crowdfunding platform.
Exactly.
They've created their own streaming network. Like that's an ecosystem that is fully contained. They don't need a single person outside of their own group in order to keep their projects going.
Exactly. So talk about truly independent. Whatever you think about Angel Studios or their movies, that's not the point here. If we're trying to extract business lessons from them, they're 100% truly independent. They
Yeah.
do need their audience, right? They can't just self-fund their own stuff. They need the audience, but that's what allows them to be truly independent is they built the relationship with the audience over the last 10 years. And there you go.
Well, I was gonna say like that there's a customer loyalty to it too, where it's like and
Mhm.
that's maybe what the 3 of us are sort of aiming for is that loyalty to projects, which comes from volume as well. Like you have to then be putting stuff out. You have to be releasing new things every on a regular basis. Otherwise, in order to build that project up, which is sort of this chicken and egg thing, which is like, how do you get the audience to make the film? But you need, you build the audience over making several films.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that comes down to like your first film has to be like I think you were saying this earlier. It's like your first film has to be something that you can make a small profit from, like that $8,000 film
Yeah.
that you can make a small profit from because you can build an audience from that will get you your $20,000 film that'll get you your 200,000. But then you can't be making a film every 5 years because that's not sustainable.
That's the conundrum. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was gonna say your film fund that you're talking about relies on also a little bit of volume. You have to be able to you can't just make one movie in 5 years for it to
Right.
be successful.
Yeah. Part of the pitch to investors is you're buying into something that's going to build the infrastructure over these 10 movies. So it doesn't fully exist. Yes, we have some distribution partnerships, we have sales people, we have production partners all over the world. Like there's a lot of infrastructure that already exists that I built before I started going out and raising the fund. But part of the play here is we won't have the same size audience on film one as we will on film 10. We're going to build it over 10 movies, and they're all going to be family friendly, stuff that sparks conversation, stuff that's uplifting, changes people for good. Like that's the thesis of the fund, so that they know that there's a brand that's going to be consistent through each one of those movies. Because then, if someone watches movie number 8 and they go, wow, that was really good. What's this Craftsman Films company? And they go back and look at all the other titles. They're going to go, wow, I want to watch all of these because I trust that they're going to be good. There's not going to be anything we're going to have to pause and tell our kids they can't watch, or like, oh, I'm so sorry for that word or whatever. Like, there you go. They know what they're getting, just like they do with a Pixar movie or a Blumhouse movie or an A24 movie or whatever it is. So that takes time, like you said. That's why it's a 10 movie fund, not a 2 or 3 movie fund, because we need that time to build up that relationship of trust with the audience.
Also, just talking about that now for a little bit, I'm curious about what it's like trying to do this in Utah versus, LA, or if you were based in New York or something like that. Are there a lot of options for you for this producer fund, or are you reaching out all over the world, all over the country, that sort of thing, to put this together?
Yeah, I'm reaching out all over the country because the way it's structured, I can't use outside investors just for tax purposes. Like I'm
Sure.
set up on an app called Sidecar. So it's spelled weird, SYDECAR.io. And that's the platform I'm using to set up the administration of the fund. And one of the caveats there is like, we can't handle international investors. Like, okay, I don't have any of those in my Rolodex. And so it should be fine for this first fund.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. For you guys up in Canada. Um, but like,
We had $1 million
fund,
to give you, but I guess
oh
I guess it
man,
just
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
work.
man. Yeah.
We
By fund 2, I'll probably use a different platform that can handle international investors, right? As far as Utah, I think what came to mind is that we call it the pioneer spirit, right? If you know the history of Utah at all, it was Mormon pioneers that came from the Midwest, like Nauvoo and Missouri, and just like came west because they were literally being hunted. Like Governor Boggs in the 1800s was the governor of Missouri and issued an extermination order, literally saying it's legal to hunt and kill Mormons,
Hmm.
which is insane.
Yeah.
But like that was
Yeah.
a thing that happened, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or I'm a Mormon, and so this is my heritage. I have relatives, 5 generations back that were in the companies of handcart families and pioneers that walked from the Midwest over into Utah Valley, like into Salt Lake Valley.
Wow.
So this is my blood and DNA. Is like there's an independent spirit kind of built in here in Utah. So you look at a lot of companies that are built here. We have what we call Silicon Slopes, and so instead of Silicon Valley, we have Silicon Slopes because we have a lot
Hmm.
of mountains here. It's that same entrepreneurial spirit of, well, if I want this to exist, I'm going to build it myself. My Garrett, who I've produced these last 2 movies with, has a sticker or a magnet on his fridge that says, "If it is to be, it is up to me."
Oh,
And
I
that's
love
the
that.
pioneer spirit. Like,
Yeah.
if we're going to survive, we have to go west. If we're going to thrive here, we're going to have to build in the the high desert farmland. How do you do that? Well,
Right.
they figured it out, right? And now there's this thriving ecosystem here in Utah, and cities in Utah are consistently rated number 1 for entrepreneurship, number 1 for quality of life, number 1 for all these things,
Hmm.
because that's what they wanted to build, and then we built it, right? I can't take a lot of credit, although my great grandfather was like a founding member of Logan's university, Utah State University. So like
Oh, wow.
I have a lot of heritage here in Utah, which speaks to that pioneer spirit of, if it is to be, it's up to me. So I think that certainly helps being in Utah as an independent filmmaker. I certainly had opportunities years ago to move to LA and be like a dialogue editor because I came up through post production sound. It's like I could move there and make $12 an hour and then hopefully become a senior dialogue editor or a sound engineer or a sound designer or whatever. But I think this again speaks to the pioneer spirit of, I don't like the idea of a limit to what's possible. And
Yeah.
so the idea of moving to New York or moving to LA and getting into sound and capping out at like 200 a year salary and having to go to work every day 9 to 5 no matter what and get 10 days off a year, it's like that's very limiting. I like my lifestyle here, which is I'm done with work every day at 3:30 because that's when my kids get home from school and I want to be done. And so people go, you're raising a fund off of 30 hours a week. I'm like, well, it's probably less than that. But like, but yeah, like I'm not doing 80 hours a week. I'm not flying all over the country trying to knock on doors and go to meetings. Like we have Zoom. Like why would I need to do it the old way? That we have a new way now. So it's just this thing that's a default setting if you're here in Utah, which is like an independent spirit. So I
Well,
think
I
it's
love that, and it sort of now makes a bit more sense as to how, because I've been following you on LinkedIn, and then through Anthony, and even taking part in your Q&A in January, which I highly recommend to anybody listening. Follow Daren Smith.
thank you.
As you can hear, tons of knowledge, but the producer fund, right? And how you are raising a lot of money, and it's incredibly impressive. But now it just makes a little bit more sense as to, like, if Utah has this entrepreneurial spirit, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of business people, business forward thinking people there that you can talk to put this together. And I think that that's just a really inspiring thing as well, because so many of us are in that boat of trying to put our movies together, trying to build a business. I guess what I'm trying to get at is you pitch a lot, and you're
Yeah.
you're constantly talking to people, pitching yourself, pitching your producer fund. What are some of the common mistakes that people make when they are pitching either their film, themselves as filmmakers, their business, their small film business, that sort of thing? What are some of the things that people get themselves tripped up on?
Two things come to mind. So the first one is pitching too early, meaning think about relationships in the typical sense of like dating, right? So you've got someone that you think is a pretty person and you want to hold their hand, and so you ask them out on a date. The thing you shouldn't do is propose on the first date, right? Like that is too big of a leap between I just met you, we barely know each other's names, I don't know anything about you, will you marry me? We would never do that because it makes no sense. And yet, in this world of filmmaking, I get DMs every single day and emails every single day from people who I've never talked to, never met, never seen their face or their name or anything, show up in an inbox, whether it's a DM on LinkedIn or an email, because it's pretty readily available on my website. Like, shoot me an email. Like, I want the right people coming in, but they'll pitch me their project and say, I'm looking for a producer. And I go, I don't know anything about you. And so the idea of even responding feels like leading them on.
Yeah.
Like I might be interested. And so I actively avoid all of those things. I actually have an email software called Hey that I use and pay money for every month, every year, because it allows you to screen people into your inbox. So what that means is before they end up in your inbox, they end up in a screener. They hit a screener first. And if they're pitching me, whether it's get leads for free or have AI improve your SEO or whatever DMs or pitches I'm getting in my inbox, I just nuke it. It's like, nope, 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 nope. And they will never be able to email me again because
Yeah.
their email address is screened out. It'll never end up in my inbox. So I use that, and it's going to be only more valuable as time goes on, because
Yeah.
if you're a screenwriter and saying I need a producer and you're pitching me in the first thing, I'm unfortunately going to screen you out. And it's nothing personal. It's just that you treated me like a bank and not like a person. And so that's mistake number one. Don't pitch too early. You need to build a relationship with someone. Again, think of it like dating. Hey, I really like your profile. Would you consider talking for a little bit? I love that post that you did on XYZ thing. Here's a question, open-ended, blah, blah, blah. I know that you're probably interested in having a conversation about your project, but I'm going to do it if you build a relationship with me, right? But
Right.
not if you pitch me on the first date. So that's number one. The second thing that people get wrong when they're pitching is this shift or this idea of supply side versus demand side. I think I touched on that briefly earlier, but like just to cover the idea, what we do as filmmakers for some reason is we say, I love producing this. And so that's what I'm going to supply to the marketplace. So
Right.
how it shows up is, well, I'm going to pitch that to investors. Here's a thing that I want to make. I need money for it. I'm going to pitch this thing. And you just pitch everybody. So it's supply side. You just keep pitching, pitching, pitching until somebody hopefully buys. And then what happens is people get 2 years into pitching a project and they go, I haven't made any progress. It's like, well, are you talking to people who actually want the thing you're selling? And that's the shift to demand side selling. And the principle that underlies this is that the demand for anything exists independent of the thing you make. So independent of you, independent of your business, independent of your project, demand exists independent of that. So how do you apply that? What does that actually mean? Well, I drew this out yesterday on a live call with the group of filmmakers that were on this month's live call. It's like there's a market out in the world that wants circles. They want perfectly round, shiny, glossy circles that are just perfectly made. That's the demand that exists, whether it's from an individual or a market, whatever. The demand is for circles. And us filmmakers are over here going, okay, well, here's a square. Yeah, it's a little wonky. I can see why you wouldn't want that square. Let me try again and refine that.
Hmm.
Oh, you still don't want that square? Well, let me get a little bit more passionate about the pitch because maybe that's what it is. Here's the square, but it's a better pitch. Well, you still don't want the square? Okay, well, maybe what I need to do is all these gurus online are saying you really need to hire a line producer to give you a $2,500 budget and schedule before you go and pitch anybody. Okay, well, here's my square with a refined pitch and a budget and schedule. Oh, you still don't want the square? Hold on. Maybe I need a business plan. Maybe that's the thing that's missing. I don't have a business plan, so I'm going to spend another $1,000 on a business plan from somebody who's saying you need this before you go pitch on LinkedIn. And now you've spent $5,000 on all the materials on all this thing for this really awesome square, and you're selling to people who want circles. And it's never going to happen. Like,
No.
unless you become a really kind of shady type of salesperson where like, oh, no. What you really want is a square. Circles are so last year, circles are out. Nobody wants circles anymore. You need this square. And let me get you in, you just pay now a little bit and then whatever. Like, you could do that type of salesmanship, but it's still not meeting the existing demand in the marketplace. So a better strategy is to stop trying to force squares to people who want circles. Instead, spend time doing two things. One is putting out into the world, here's the kind of thing I make. And if you're interested, come over here, right? That's where an email list comes in really nicely, because you can say, look, I'm making, let's use me for example. I'm raising money for a $10 million fund to produce family-friendly, really high quality, independent feature films. If that's something that interests you, you should click this button and get on my email list or learn about the fund or whatever the next step is, right? So I'm automating some of the process of relationship building. I'm putting a lot of content out in the world that says, here's what I'm making. If that's interesting to you, come over here.